Hello folks, I think this will be the first of my tech videos. I am on call this week actually. This has been since Saturday I think, or Sunday I think, I can't remember now. I think Saturday, yeah, Friday night probably. And I've been receiving different pages uh, for some stuff. For some, most of the pages we are working, the product teams are working. The pages are around, say, so we get it on pager duty, so I get it on pager duty, and if I miss it or something, then it gets escalated to my lead, and then it gets escalated to a support team at company level at Ola and all. So it's called Ola Command Center and all. I am currently getting alerts regarding, say, Redis reaching memory 90%, or things like our DNS server, which is actually core DNS, which is inside a Kubernetes cluster. The response latency is being high, but the core DNS latency issue, it gets resolved automatically. I'm going to debug. I still haven't gotten around to debugging it. And then Redis memory issue, apparently it's some code issue in the application that is using the Redis, and the team is working on it. So as of now, no matter how much memory we give to the Redis, the application seems to be using more and more of the Redis memory. And then when it reaches a peak, I think it starts evicting the keys, and they have a I don't know what eviction mechanism they have. I'm going to check it out, but I think they have a sensible and acceptable key eviction mechanism that the team accepts, the product team, the application team, the development team basically is accepts and is okay with. So yeah, I'm gonna check out if it's a cache and all, because ideally it should be a cache, because or else it's basically data loss. So I'm still pretty new. This is the first time I'm getting on call in Ola, and and yesterday I noticed one interesting issue. It was in production actually. It was for one of the electric vehicle EV applications, but it was only the issue was on a Redis again. This was not a Redis memory issue though this time. This was actually an issue in Redis, in a Redis cluster, in one of the Redis instances. This was actually a replica instance though. This was the replica of a master shard. So this was also I mean, this is also a shard, but the replica shard of a master shard. I'm going to be checking out how we have set up the Redis. We actually use Redis on Kubernetes. So we run Redis clusters, Redis cluster setup, which is the Redis sharded Redis, and we also have a master slave setup of Redis, which is the HA Redis setup, both on Kubernetes. And we use Kubernetes operators, and this Kubernetes operator for Redis was written by my lead. So pretty cool stuff. I still haven't gotten around to reading the source code of it and all. I'm probably gonna ask him if we can actually open source it and all. Let's see. There are Redis operators out there also, open source ones. I'm not sure why they built their own, but it's pretty cool, and I'm gonna learn from it. And What was this replica shard issue? So basically, I got the pager yesterday at 3 a.m. I think. I noticed it later, and I thought it's a usual issue, but then later I realized that it's not. Later I got to like this similar to the Redis memory being high, but this was a different app, different issue and all that. I was like, okay, this one said the Redis cluster state is 0, basically not good. And then the same instance also had this issue, this alert. So we have different alerts for our Redis, interesting alerts. I'll talk about it. And we use the Redis exporter that is open source, I think. I'll talk about that also. So we use basically Prometheus now, and I think we have alert manager, which picks up the alerts and then sends the alerts to PagerDuty. So I was looking at the Redis alerts on the Prometheus and the alert rules. We also have some record rules. I'm still learning what are the different stuff we have. And in the alert rules, Redis cluster state being 0, it's some metric, is a metric to say that the Redis cluster state is bad, but this was only for the replica shard instance. Of course, the other instances are good and fine. Only for the replica shard instance, this was the problem. And this metric was, of course, coming from the Redis exporter, and it got scraped by the Prometheus, and it came to the Prometheus, and the alert got triggered after some time, and then went to the alert manager, and then finally PagerDuty. So and yeah, I mean, the other alert for the same instance was actually slots uncovered. So these are the slots basically that you get in your Redis cluster, the fixed number of slots. I think it's 16,000 something. I think it's basically 2 per 16 or something, 2 per 16 minus 1 or something like that. So 16,000 something slots. And you basically divide this fixed number of slots across your shards, and then given a key, you decide how or which slot it goes to, and then whatever shard is assigned to that slot, it goes to that shard, right? I believe this is how it works. It's been long since I learned this and tried this out and all that, but I believe this is how it works. And usually this is how sharding works. You basically have some sort of hashing, consistent hashing, some hashing mechanism. There are a lot of mechanisms to hash and divide your data into shards depending on your application, and depending on your how you want it to be. Ideally, you want all the shards to have this around the same amount of data, instead of having one shard having a lot of data and that one shard getting overloaded and all that. So I don't know what kind of hashing mechanism they've used here in the application and all. I'll probably go check it out. Fortunately, I'm in Ola, and I can actually, I also have access to the source code of the applications. I can actually learn from it. I've had access to source code before also when I was a production engineer, say in ThoughtWorks when I was working in Gojek, but I've never went around like checking out the source code and learning from it. Bad. All very smart people, so I'm sure they would have written some smart stuff, so I can learn from it. And just by reading, I may not be able to understand. It'll take some time, but I can use some AI tools like Codium or GitHub Copilot and all, and I can say explain this code to me to understand stuff, right? So it'll be interesting. So yeah, I mean, I can also probably contribute to them and be like, I use AI and learned this and contributed, and I also use AI to contribute, say to write tests, generate tests and write tests and whatnot. Here, take the PR, pull request and whatnot. Anyways, we'll come to that. Because SREs do that's what they do, right? If there are issues in code, for example, one of these teams said there is some issue in their code, they have to fix it and whatnot. They haven't fixed it, causing it to take too much memory in Redis. No matter how much memory you give to Redis, it just takes more and more memory. Some leak problem or whatever, right? It's not basically cleaning up or whatever, I don't know. So garbage collection of sorts, I guess. But yeah, but at custom application level stuff, not like language level garbage collection, but generic garbage collection concept, right? But at this application level, right? Custom application and not like some language like a compiler level and all that, or like runtime level. Not compiler, but runtime, yeah. Application runtime, like language runtime and all that. So now, so this error that I noticed, the shards and whatnot, like this one shard, there were many shards available for this. One of the shards, I think this one was called 8, like 8. So this has been implemented using stateful sets. Each shard is a stateful set, which has two instances. One instance is a replica and one instance is a master. This is a very slavery-based term, but anyways, basically primary and second replica or primary and secondary. I would say primary and replica basically. So the primary was all fine. The replica was having this issue where according to it, the Redis cluster state was not fine because I think it didn't have all the data that it needed from the primary, and that is the master according to this Redis cluster version. And this was a slave and this was a replica. and it also didn't have all the slots, or according to it the slots were not covered. It won't have all the slots, of course. A shard will have only some number of slots, but it said the number of slots is not covered or something. I'm gonna check it out what that means. But and when I looked at its logs, it was the same set of logs. It said it got started or something, and I think all of these shards got started. I don't know if they got started or recreated or what, but it was created probably a day or two ago or something. And but only one of them said I'm like this replica, this eighth one, or eighth index one, because I think the indexes start from 0. So the ninth one, which has index 8, and the replica, it said the log said something like connecting to master, syncing, some partial synchronization and whatnot, and then finally it said connection to master lost, and this happens again and again and again. I was reading about this on Google. Google's AI overview said this can be due to because say the client buffer max limit on the primary side, because according to the primary, the replica is a client, right? So replica is connecting as a client to the primary, which is a server according to the replica, and as a client it's connecting and it's getting the data to replicate the data from the server. So as a Redis client, the replica is trying to get it from the Redis server, the primary, and the Redis server can probably have some data like this is how much I'll send, and the buffer and whatnot. Probably it went beyond that or something, I don't know, but this is what I read, like something about client buffer and whatnot. And so this error was happening again and again and again, like connection to master lost, again trying to like synchronize and whatnot, again connection to master lost. This happened like too many times. I didn't count the number of times. And then I didn't debug later. I had to go to work. I was expected to be at work really early and all. Finally, yesterday evening I was just bumped with work, like stormed with work. Like I had some meeting with some vendors regarding one of our migrations for we are migrating away from GitHub, anything Azure and stuff. Generally anything Microsoft, I believe. We are migrating away from GitHub, so we were looking at different options like Bitbucket, GitLab. So we had a vendor to help us understand how good is Bitbucket by Atlassian, and then we are also looking at GitLab. I don't know what other options. So yeah, and I had a meeting for that, and then I had an interview, and then I was trying to mentor someone, and then I was eating, and then that's all. Like the day just went on, and then I was too sleepy to do anything. I was just simply just recording videos or ordering food and stuff like that. And then so it's today morning now, and I'm going to check it out. But I noticed after my interview or something that it got resolved. The issue got resolved. Looks like it was not resolved by someone. I was asking just my one of my colleagues, like, hey, did you do something? Because he usually knows a lot about Redis. It's Gagan Yadav, so I work with him at Ola in the core infrastructure team, and he's a very, very knowledgeable guy when it comes to Redis. He's been working with the Redis for a lot of months now. All the Redis clusters and Redis HA setup over here in Ola, which are running on Kubernetes, and I think almost all are running on Kubernetes. We have migrated it all to Kubernetes, and this was even before I came, so I don't know too much about this, but Gagan Yadav is like very, very knowledgeable in like Redis clusters and Redis HA setup. He has a lot of experience in like working with Redis and working with Redis issues in production and whatnot. In this case, it is my chance to learn from him by being on this team, and by being on call and whatnot. So I'm going to learn from him. I'm going to debug it on my own first, and then I'm going to learn from him. So I thought he might have done something to fix it, but looks like he also didn't. Like usually my lead notices stuff. He is also on call. Gagan is not on call, so he couldn't have noticed this pager. So if I didn't notice and it got escalated and whatnot, but it got acknowledged by someone else. I think I also acknowledged apparently PagerDuty can anyone can acknowledge, any number of people can acknowledge, and it'll assign the incidents to multiple people also. I noticed this only later, so it was interesting. I was like, if my lead acknowledged, now can I acknowledge? Can I still acknowledge? I tried it out and it worked. So it assigned my lead and my name. So this time I think this got acknowledged by the Ola command center, this issue alone, because this came at like 3 a.m. in the morning, and then later I noticed it and I was checking it out, debugging this yesterday in the morning, and this is very basic information only I've got till now. I'm still learning about what can cause this Redis connection, like connection to master lost, and what was happening exactly, how to reproduce this issue and whatnot in local, let's say, and then how to fix this and how to ensure that this doesn't happen again, right? And stuff like that. And I was also wondering how companies like say Redis handled all these alerts and all these issues, and how companies like Amazon, who handle say Elasticache, manage all these alerts and issues. They probably have high client buffer in case that is the problem and whatnot. Like how does it get automatically resolved? Like let's say this happens again, something, do I have to increase the buffer or whatever? Like how does it get automatically resolved is the question, or how do you ensure that this doesn't even happen in the first place, right? So yeah, that's that. Resiliency, basically, it's not an easy thing, but I'm sure companies like Amazon and of course Redis would have solved this in their open source version, and of course Redis company has their enterprise version also. Yeah, and I think Redis enterprise even has like active or something like multi primary and all. Anyways, it's a popular thing. So now this problem I'll be looking at it again today, but so Gagan didn't look at it and looks like it got automatically resolved. I don't know how. I'll be surely looking at the logs and running some commands to understand the cluster information and whatnot, and reading more about this and the logs that I saw. And also I'm going to check out what are the logging solutions we have in case the logs are lost, as in from the pod, is it stored somewhere else? I don't know if we have it in this case, I'm not sure. Hopefully we do, ideally we should. In the previous like stint in Gojek, when I was working with Gojek as a consultant in ThoughtWorks, I was working in ThoughtWorks as a consultant, and Gojek was a company. As I was working as a production, as in like infrastructure guy, and sometimes working on production issues. And but I was still very new to software in general. That was my first project in official project in software industry, and I didn't use enough opportunities to learn over there. I still regret it. I spent some 2 years. I learned a lot of things, but not production issues stuff, which is really ideal and important, and you can learn from it a lot. But I learned Kubernetes, Helm, and other stuff, Postgres a bit, and Redis a bit, but not enough. I still have lots more to learn. I still get to learn lots more, not like have to. So I still get to learn lots more. But yeah, I mean, that time we were running on GKE, Google Kubernetes Engine, and all the logs were available on, I think they had a logging solution by default. Any logs from Google Kubernetes Engine, any pods, and cluster level operations, all of the logs will be available on the Google Cloud Platform, Cloud Console, and also on your CLI. I think there must be some CLI version of it also. So, but this one is on Elastic Kubernetes Service, AWS EKS, the Ola one. But I don't think we have enabled the Cloud Watch and stuff like that to get the logs, and it's pretty costly actually, Cloud Watch. I don't know why. I am gonna read about it, but I am guessing it's because everything has logs, and you basically use anything. They are cheap, but the log storage solution is not. I don't know why that is the case. Probably it's a good strategy by AWS, or I don't know what. Or it's just that they have a really good solution that they want to actually bank on it and actually ask for more money because it's really good. Um, But yeah, I mean, I'm going to look at the logs, I'm going to understand the Redis, try to reproduce the issue locally, and probably, not probably, surely record it, surely talk about it like I'm talking about it now. And so I spoke to Gagan like over Slack now, and he said he didn't do anything, or seems like it. So he said he'll check it out, so which means he hasn't even seen it yet. He asked me which cluster. I was like, okay, I'll tell you. I can't remember the name exactly. I'll tell you, but first let me look at it. I'll also get to learn. I'll get to debug and whatnot. Since I don't know too much about Redis, or I haven't noticed enough issues in production in Redis, at least not these kind of issues. At least I don't remember. Though I've noticed some issues in Redis in production. But anyways, and we have a lot of Grafana dashboards for different kinds of software, and we have one for Redis also. So I'm going to actually check that out also, and I'm going to look at the metrics and whatnot, the graph of metrics, say on Prometheus itself or on Grafana. In case there's not one, probably just create a custom what is it called, row and custom panel, and create a visualization in case I want to look at it, and probably just save it, assuming it's useful, then just save it instead of looking at it only in Prometheus and all. So yeah, it's PromQL, so I can just write the PromQL on Prometheus and then copy paste on Grafana, or just do it on Grafana itself directly. And what else? I'll look at logs, I'll read about the Redis, try to reproduce it in local, talk about it. Talking about it actually helps, because when I'm trying to explain something, it helps me think, and I'm trying to write it down, record it and whatnot, explain, talk it out. It helps me think and not just thinking. For some people just thinking might help, but for me writing makes it more clear. The clarity of thought is like great. So when I was talking to Gagan, I was telling about how this issue, we will, if we understand this is great, because in this case this was a replica shard. In case let's say the master dies for some reason, will the replica get promoted to master, like to primary, right? So if the primary dies or is gone for some reason somehow, will the replica get promoted? I think these are based on some settings. If the replica is very much behind the primary in terms of data that it has, then it doesn't get promoted. And I think in Redis cluster setup, usually the other cluster like the what do you say, the other shards in the cluster do this promotion and all. In HA setup there is a sentinel usually if you want automatic promotion, but I don't think in Redis cluster setup you have a sentinel. So yeah, so that's that. And then so Redis Sentinel is actually one of the components in Redis HA, but I don't think that's there in Redis cluster. Instead they have the Sentinel built in into the cluster code, whatever they have written in the Redis cluster itself. And Redis cluster is part of the Redis code itself, and it's just running in cluster mode and whatnot. And it's all built in, I think it's all baked in. The Sentinel part also. So the other nodes in the cluster, look at it. Can you still use Sentinels? I think you can. I don't know. I have to check it out. I can't. Maybe you can. Like in this case, for example, this Sentinel for just the one shard which has a primary and replica. For every shard have a sentinel and whatnot. Maybe you can do it. So that's that. But I don't know if it will actually work well along with the cluster code cluster, Redis cluster, which also has this feature of like doing automatic failover. So something to check out. I have to see. I have to also see how this has been set up, right? Depending on how the setup has been done, can you use a Redis Sentinel or not is the question. And I don't think Redis Sentinel then will make sense, because you don't want to have two components, two separate components which have different brains to be doing this whole failover. It should have only one brain doing the failover for a given primary and replica. Because if both of them keep trying to do something without talking to each other, having their own brain and whatnot, doesn't make sense. So it can cause problems, I think. So yeah, it won't be an integrated thing because they have their own brain, right? So two different components and whatnot. So that's that. So if the primary dies, we lose the shard, the primary shard, And even though replica is there, replica is not in sync and is not in a great state, like it doesn't have enough data. Will it get promoted is one question. Like first thing, if it does get promoted, is it okay if it gets promoted? Like are the settings right? Because usually there is some setting saying if the replica is very much behind, let's say in Postgres and all, you usually say if the replica is behind 1 MB, it's fine. Like say you have 10 MB in the primary and 9 MB in the replica, you can do a failover, it's fine. But if the replica has 8 MB or 7 MB, not fine, something like that. So how much is the diff or the gap? They call it as lag. Yeah, so how much is the replication lag? How much is it lagging behind in terms of data? So if it's lagging behind very much, then you do not promote generally, because it doesn't make sense to promote a replica that is lagging behind, especially in cases where you want data loss to not be there because primary has more data. You would rather just be like, you don't want data loss, you want consistency and all. Then you would rather bank on consistency and say you will compromise on availability and say primary is not available and replica is lagging behind too much. I can't promote it. I can't have that much data loss. So I can't promote it. I won't promote it. I can't have that much data loss. Say more than 1 MB or whatever consistency like you want, like whatever data loss you can accept. If you can accept no data loss, so if there is no lag, only then you will promote your replica, like whatever standards you have, right? Depending on the criticality of the data and all. Usually people have very low lag only for promotion, saying it should not be more than say 1 MB or whatever like that. And if it's more than 1 MB, then I won't. If the replication lag is more than 1 MB, then I won't promote the replica to primary in case the primary dies. I would rather just say that the setup is down, though replica is running, but it's lagging behind too much, and primary is down. Primary has more data, but it's unavailable, unfortunately. Replica is up, but it's lagging behind too much. I won't promote it. So now you can't access the data at all. It's fine. You are saying you will compromise on availability because you want consistency of data. So this can happen even in the case of this Redis cluster. If the shard primary goes down, and the settings are in such a way that replica will not get promoted, then you basically lose one of your shards. You lose some set of slots, out of the 16,000 something slots. You lose some slots, you lose some data. The application cannot access some data, right? Then what is the problem? So if the Redis cluster is being used as a data storage, and you need the data and you want consistency, then it's a problem. But if it's being used as a cache, it's not a problem, maybe. As in, like, it's still a problem in the sense that there'll be some cache miss for any cache that is stored in that shard. You'll have performance issues if cache is a problem. So that's that. Just a moment. So you'll have that problem, and then you'll have cache misses, and then you'll have performance problems. Even let's say, even if the replica gets promoted, the settings are like that. Even if it's lagging behind a bit and it gets promoted, primary is down. At some point, if the replica also goes down, now your primary is also down, the replica is also down, you will lose the shard. But of course, in this case and all, you should have good alerts. So of course someone will come and interfere and intervene. Human intervention will be there, manual intervention, assuming automation didn't work out, or you don't have automation to take care of such cases to ensure that the setup is resilient. As it matures, it will become resilient. Of course, you learn from things. So yeah, I mean, if it's a cache, it's fine, but you'll have fine, assuming it's okay that one shard is gone in the cache, and that will have cache misses, and you can't write the cache also to that shard, because usually you will have some keys mapped to those slots. But if the Redis cluster is smart enough, it will also do resharding, I think, I don't know, like to ensure that okay, this shard is not available, let's say that okay, this data is lost, and you can just move the slots and you can just assume the data is lost and whatnot. But that doesn't make sense, because if you want consistency, you don't assume the data is lost. Instead, you just wait for it to come back up and tell that this is the data that I have, instead of saying hereafter let's say it had 100 slots, hereafter those 100 slots the other shards will maintain. What if it comes back up? Now what will it do? What about the data that it has, and what about the same 100 slots data that the other shards have? Which one should you consider? You have consistency problems. But if it's a cache, it's fine. So it really depends, and I don't know what kind of configuration Redis cluster provides today. And before also I learned, but I can't remember much now about the configurations, and there must be many. And the other thing is, so it's a problem, especially in consistency case. If we lose the primary shard and replica shard doesn't get promoted, then we lose the shard, then we lose data. Application can't get access to the data until the primary shard comes back up. So that's a big problem. The bigger problem is, what if this synchronization problem happens for multiple replicas? Multiple replicas say we are not synchronized, connection to master lost, and then multiple primaries go down. That's like very crazy. Even if it's a cache, big cache miss problem. Cache cannot be written, existing cache cannot be read. Lot of cache misses. Cache cannot be written also, performance issues, and a lot of performance issues. If it's a consistency, like if it's used as a data storage, lot of problems. You can't really store data. But ideally, if many replicas are giving these errors, you should have many alerts and you should work on it critically. And if you have multiple primaries dying, you should have many alerts, critical alerts, and you should work on it critically. And there should be some human intervention. So in this case, yeah, good enough that it was a replica, but not great. It's okay. You should still get the replica back up immediately, so that in case the primary goes down, you have the replica shard to take its place. So you have to bring up the replica since the replica is running, but bring it up to date, in sync with the primary or the main, instead of it being behind and like lagging behind. So the replication lag should be as close to 0 as possible. So you should bring it back up, and if it's down, you should bring it back up running, of course. If it's lagging behind, you should bring it back up to date, in sync with main, primary, master, whatever you want to call it. So you want to ensure that the replication lag is 0 or close to 0, and bring it and make it up to date, and bring it and ramp it up and bring it up to date, or else in case the primary goes down, it's a problem. So yeah, so that's all I had for this video, talking about the whole Redis issue that we are facing as of now. This is one of the interesting problems that I noticed in Redis first time. I can't remember the other interesting problems that I noticed when I was working in ThoughtWorks with Gojek. Hereafter, I'll try to talk about the problems, different production problems, issues that we face as a team, I face as a developer, and I've noticed as a developer, and I've worked on as a developer, as an infrastructure developer, SRE developer, SRE person, SRE engineer and all, so that people can learn from me, and this is also a way for me to talk about my experience. In the future, it will help me recall, because I can't remember everyday experiences, and I can't write about it quickly. It's easy to talk about it quickly, and like audio is easy, but I like video. So yeah, so that's all I had for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.